The gentleman yields back. The question is on the amendment as modified offered by the gentleman from Louisiana. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
Madam Chair?
The gentleman from Louisiana is recognized.
On that vote, I'd ask for the yeas and nays.
Does the gentleman ask for a recorded vote?
Yes, ma'am.
Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Louisiana will be postponed. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Texas rise?
Madam Chairwoman, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment offered by Ms. Jackson Lee of Texas. Page 32, line 12, after the dollar amount, insert decreased by $5,500,000. Page 65, line 19, after the dollar amount, insert increased by $5 million.
The gentlewoman from Texas is recognized for 5 minutes.
I thank you, Madam Chairwoman. We are in some tough times, but I believe it's important to have a structure in this government that provides oversight over the environment of this country. And however one may quarrel with regulations that may seem a little steep, the work of the Environmental Protection Agency is important. And as we stand here today, this legislation cuts the budget of the Environmental Protection Agency by 18%, in addition to a 16% cut in funding for FY 2011, 34%. This is unacceptable. In order to protect the environment without harming industry, we must reach a compromise instead of haphazardly slashing the EPA budget. These cuts purposely limit the EPA's ability to ensure that all Americans have access to drinking water that does not contain harmful pathogens and toxins that expose Americans to serious risks such as typhoid, hepatitis, cancer, and organ damage. The assault on public health does not stop with the quality of our drinking water. This bill also takes drastic steps to weaken the Clean Air Act. A rider is attached that will prevent the EPA from implementing the cross-state air pollution rule, a regulation that was implemented to protect the public from dangerous air pollution and prevent up to 34,000 premature deaths, 15,000 heart attacks, and 400,000 cases of aggregated asthma. I've never seen an EPA director work as hard as Administrator Lisa Jackson, although we have had some outstanding administrators. She has worked with members across the aisle. But these cuts reduce funding for the very programs that keep Americans, our constituents, safe. And I cannot speak for my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, but I cannot afford to have these cuts impact the people of Houston and around the nation. Since 1999, Houston has exchanged titles with Los Angeles for the poorest air quality in the nation. And so it is important that we find a way to increase the funding for the EPA. And as this bill makes its way through the floor, I'm continuing to work to do so. And I start first with this effort, and I ask my colleagues to support this amendment, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman cannot reserve. The gentlewoman yields back the balance of her time.
No, I do not yield back. I will continue. How much time do I have left, please?
The gentlewoman has 2.5 minutes.
All right, thank you. Let me just explain, and thank you, Madam Chair. I will continue, and I will not at this time yield back my time. Let me explain to you about the Old Acres Home Citizens Council. This is a historic African-American community located in Houston, Texas. The council partnered with the University of Texas to conduct a study to assess the community's health risks. It was determined that a local landfill could be the cause for the community's health-related problems, enormous cancer in that area. As a result of the study, the council was awarded a $20,000 grant from the EPA Justice Small Grants Program under the Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation Liability Act, commonly known as the Superfund, which obviously it was in some years past, to conduct tests to detect, assess, and assess and evaluate the risk to human health from hazardous substances. The goal of the Small Grants Program evaluation project was to investigate whether there were hazardous substances in the runoff from the adjacent landfill. This community needed those resources. The Council used the EPA grant funds to hire an EPA-approved environmental consultant to take soil and water samples from the backyards. The results of the sample analysis revealed high concentrations of toxic substances, many of which are harmful to humans. Since 2002, the residents of Acres Home have observed water and substances seeping from the landfill into their backyards. This runoff collects into pools of standing water. Due to poor drainage, these standing pools became engorged, then flood, thereby increasing exposure of residences to potentially hazardous substances from the landfill. This was the work of the EPA. It educated a poor community of seniors and others about the conditions of their neighborhood. This funding that takes away from EPA also takes away from the Clean Water State Revolving Fund and, of course, impacts communities like that of the Acres Home community in the 18th Congressional District. My friends, we cannot gamble with the safety of the American public, the cleanliness of air and water, the quality of the environment for future generations. We need to restore this funding, and I've made this effort to do so. I will continue to do so. Since the debt limit was put in place, we have always paid America's bills. We fight today to raise the debt ceiling, but at the same time, we're cutting away at America's safety and America's need for environmental protection. I ask my colleagues to support this amendment because it is the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do for Acres Home community in Houston, Texas. With that, Madam Speaker and Madam Chairwoman, I yield back.
The gentlewoman's time has expired. The gentleman from Idaho is recognized.
Move to strike last word.
Gentleman's recognized for 5 minutes.
Madam Chairwoman, same debate over again. We're taking money from the Office of Secretary, which is down some $33 million, I think it was, from the budget request of this year. Then we've taken $20 million out of that already to put into the Land and Water Conservation Fund. This would take more money out of the Office of the Secretary. It seems like every time somebody has an amendment that they want to offer to fund some program that they believe is important, and oftentimes they are important, the savings account that you get it from is the Office of the Secretary, not only in this bill but in other bills. We always, we take it out of administration. That's always the easy thing to do. But the fact is the Office of the Secretary has taken a pretty good hit in this bill, both during the markup and here on debate on the floor. And so I'm afraid I have to oppose this amendment because I think it hits an account that is already substantially lower than what was requested. So I would oppose the amendment.
Gentleman, yield just for a moment. Well, first of all, I didn't thank both you and the ranking member for a very tough task. And I think my overall intent was the need for increasing the funding in the EPA. As we make our way through this process, does the gentleman see in the consultation with the other body any opportunity to restore any of these funds to the EPA?
I would have to say I don't know. I don't know what the Senate is doing, what their allocation is going to be. They have not passed a budget, so they have no 302B over there to work with. But certainly we realize that the EPA has taken the largest hit within this budget. A lot of that was due to the fact that they had the largest increases over the last couple of years. But certainly we will be looking at all of these accounts when we go into conference with the body across the rotunda, trying to come to a compromise that can pass both the House and the Senate.
Well, if the gentleman would yield again, I'm going to continue to work on this issue. I know that we're going to take a vote on this, and as they say, will come back again on the floor because I think this is a very important issue, and I thank the gentleman for yielding to allow me to again express how important it is that the EPA be funded more fully than it has been. I thank the gentleman. I yield back to the gentleman.
Yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentlewoman from Texas. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to. The clerk will read.
Page 33, line 18, Insular Affairs, Assistance to Territories, $82,558,000. Compact of Free Association, $3,307,000. Administrative provisions. The Secretary may transfer discretionary funds provided under Section 104E of Public Law 108-188 and Public Law 104-134. Office of the Solicitor, salaries and expenses, $64,946,000.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Arizona rise?
Madam Chair, I have an amendment at the table.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment offered by Mr. Gosar of Arizona. Page 36, line 24. After the dollar amount, insert decreased by $4,367,000. Page 88, line 9. After the dollar amount, insert increased by $4,367,000.
The gentleman from Arizona is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As someone who's practiced chairside dentistry for 25 years, I know firsthand the profound value of oral health, particularly for children. Oral health care access early in life is shown to be a critical aspect of primary preventative care. This is especially true in the Native American community, which I am proud to serve as representative of Arizona, which has 21 federally recognized tribes. For this reason, my amendment would transfer $4,367,000 from the Office of the Department of Interior Solicitor General to the Indian Health Service. The committee report recommends $4,367,000 less than the President's request for dental health within IHS. And while the bill does not name dental health specifically, I would like to make it clear on this floor tonight that this reallocation of funds is explicitly intended to fund dental health programs within IHS at the level recommended by the administration. The United States government took long ago a number of treaty obligations to our Native people, and health care was among them. In particular, I cannot state strongly enough how imperative it is that the Indian tribes have this effort in the area of oral health fully funded. Believe it or not, the incidence of early childhood caries, or commonly understood tooth decay, occurs among the Native American and Alaskan Natives population at 300% the rate of the United States average. This is unacceptable. And again, as someone who has practiced dentistry as long as I have, I can tell you that this epidemic will have dire consequences for these children throughout their lives. Worse still, the severity of decay is substantially higher in these children compared to the population as a whole. Preschool Native children average more than 5 decayed teeth compared to 1 decayed tooth among U.S. preschool children of all races. In many Native communities, between 25 and 50% of preschool children have such extensive tooth decay that they require full mouth restorations under general anesthesia, compared to less than 1% for non-Native children. We have an obligation to improve this sad state of affairs, and so I offer this amendment and encourage my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to support it for the sake of these Native children, who we have an obligation. And I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from Idaho rise?
Strike the last word.
The gentleman's recognized for 5 minutes.
Madam Chairwoman, you're going to hear from the entire dental caucus tonight. Both Congressman Gosar from Arizona and myself are the two dentists that are in Congress, so it might not surprise you that I support the gentleman's amendment. I appreciate his sincere efforts to address the obligations, both trust obligations and treaty obligations, and moral obligations that we have with our Indian brothers and sisters across this country. One of the things I'm proudest of in this bill, as I said in my opening statement during general debate, was to be able to carry on the work that had been done by Chairman Dix when he was chairman of the committee, Chairman Moran when he was chairman of the committee, and now that I'm chairman of the committee, to meet those trust obligations that we have with our Indian brothers and sisters across this country. One of the areas in this bill, one of the two areas, that actually got increased funding was Indian Health Services, because we do have an obligation to meet these things. Dental decay is the most prevalent disease in the United States, and as the gentleman from Arizona said, it's 300% more likely in Native Americans than it is in the normal population. That's unacceptable. We have to do something about it, and it means that we have to meet the contract obligations that we have had. There's a saying that's been said around the country that if you live in Indian country, you need to get sick before June, because the contract support costs run out about that time. One thing we've made a concerted effort to do on a bipartisan basis is try to fund 100% of the contract support costs for Native Americans. We haven't reached that goal yet. I think in this bill we're about at 93 or 94%, something like that. The contract support in the BIA that does the police work and those types of things are fully funded. We are going to continue to work to make sure that we meet those obligations that I think we all as Americans have, and I appreciate the amendment offered by the gentleman from Arizona, and I truly appreciate his support for our Indian brothers and sisters, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from Virginia rise?
I rise to strike the last word, Madam
The gentleman is
Chairwoman.
recognized for 5 minutes.
As I have said publicly and privately to the chairman of the Interior Appropriations Subcommittee, I congratulate him for taking the initiative and showing the commitment to Indian Health Service by increasing it by $369 million this year. And dental health specifically is up by $13.8 million. That's above the existing level this year, and this year is above last year. Granted, the need is very substantial, and so I am very supportive. The problem is that with this amendment that adds another $4.3 million for the express purpose of increasing dental health further, it's the offset. The cut is to the solicitor of the department that serves as the chief legal officer, and it's the solicitor that provides legal services to Native Americans on behalf of the department. So you're taking the chief legal officer for the Native Americans of this country and making a substantial cut to the resources available for that position. It's kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul. There are very substantial and serious legal issues that need to be dealt with on behalf of Indians throughout the country, and there are very difficult health issues that certainly need to be addressed. So I did not rise in opposition to the amendment, but I do think that taking the money from the solicitor is an unfortunate place to be finding a cut of $4.3 million. But I'll yield back my time.
The gentleman yields back. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Arizona. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.
They have to start reading.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Idaho rise?
Madam Chairman, I ask unanimous consent that the remainder of the bill through page 56, line 22, be considered as read, printed in the record, and open to amendment at any point.
Is there objection?
Committee rise.
Without objection, so ordered. For what purpose does the gentleman from Idaho rise?
Madam Chairwoman, I move the committee do now rise.
The question is on the motion that the committee rise. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Accordingly, the committee rises.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Speaker, the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union, having had under consideration H.R. 2584, directs me to report that it has come to no resolution thereon.
The Chair of the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union reports that the committee has had under consideration H.R. 2584 and has come to no resolution thereon. For what purpose does the gentleman from Idaho rise?
I move the House do now adjourn.
The question on the motion is to adjourn. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it and the motion is adopted. Accordingly, the House stands adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow for morning hour debate.
So the House has gavelled out. But earlier today, members passed a bill sponsored by Nebraska Congressman Lee Terry expediting the approval process for a crude oil pipeline running from Canada to Texas. The chamber also